The City Council Committee meeting is now in session. Please rise. Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tony. Here. Lou.
Here.
David.
Here.
Wingo.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
Oleski.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Auditors here.
Thank you. Tonight, we're convening to discuss piece of the legislation, which is T84 ordinance before you. At this time, I would like to have one of the gentlemen from the fire department. Thank you all for being here this evening. Give us a rundown as to why this is important.
Yes.
Okay, as I stated earlier, I'm reading a position statement on behalf of Chief Reese, who couldn't be here tonight. City council members, I would first like to begin by apologizing for not being able to attend this meeting in person. I am on a family vacation that was planned in November of 2020. I would have liked to have been at this meeting because the 5-City radio project is of the utmost importance to our community. And I have been working on it with fire chiefs from Avon Lake, Sheffield Lake, and Sheffield Village for over 5 years. I will try to do my best through this position statement to convey the importance of completing and implementing this project as prescribed. As I am sure you're already aware, the safety of our residents and of our firefighters is my first priority. As required by my position, fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers runs a close second. All this was taken into consideration when I began to work with the aforementioned fire chiefs on fixing our 5-City Fire Department emergency communication system, which we refer to as a 5-City radio system. The original 5-City radio system is a VHF system that has been failing for years. As a matter of fact, my predecessor, Chief Miller, switched our fire department to our own UHF system over 20 years ago. Chief Miller switched our fire department to our own UH system over 20 years ago because the VHF system had become overcrowded. In the last 5 years, both systems have begun failing miserably and are now to a point where they are both unacceptable for the daily emergency use of our fire department.
The batteries might be dying.
Can't even get our microphones to work.
This one's. I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but these systems both should have been abandoned at least 2 years ago. We have all experienced recent near misses on the routine responses and are concerned about the likelihood of a catastrophic system failure happening to either of the systems in the near future. Time is of the essence in replacing the current fire department emergency communication system. I believe that the cities of Avon Lake, Sheffield Lake, and Sheffield Village all recognize this, which is why they are all at least on the second reading of similar legislation to sign the Cleveland Communications and Corporation contract and to get this system up and running in the next couple of months. Opposed?
All right.
proposed system is an L3 Harris APCO P25 Phase 2 linear simulcast, two-way 700 and 800 megahertz radio system, similar to those that are already being used in nearby cities and counties. The system will incorporate 3 repeater sites, which will be located on the Avon Lake Water Tower on Walker Road, the Avon Water Tower on Mills Road, and the County 911 Tower at Lorraine County Community College. The contracts for the water tower sites have been through the legal departments in both Avon and Avon Lake and are currently going through the approval process with both councils. Commissioner Michelle Hung has contacted Mayor John Hunter of Sheffield Village and told him that the county will allow the 3rd repeater to be placed on the 911 tower at Lorraine County Community College. The 3 repeater sites communicate with each other through microwaves and operate through an L3 Harris Vita core. North Ridgeville Fire is guaranteed 95% in-building coverage by contract. And we are told that it is expected that our signal will exceed that amount in some of the areas of the city. This system will not require expensive bidirectional amplifiers or BDAs to be installed by business owners or vehicle repeaters to be installed by the fire department to provide this 95% in-building coverage. The cost of the system is $10 per radio per month for the first 2 years of the contract, which will amount to approximately $5,520 each year for the fire department. All fees are subject to an increase at each contract renewal based on the Consumer Price Index, effective on January 1st of that year. We also have the option after 2 years to reprogram our radios and use a different service if we are not happy with the Harris system. The proposal is functionally and financially the ideal emergency communication system for the fire department and is provided at no risk due to the terms of the contract. Most costly expenditure in any emergency communication system is the hardware. In this case, the hardware that the system operates from is owned and maintained by Cleveland Communications Corporation. And we pay to use it through the $10 per radio per month user fees. The next cost is to consider is the purchase of both the mobile and portable radios for use by the fire department. In this case, Cleveland Communications Incorporated, in partnership with Harris, is providing 10 L3 Harris XL200M mobile radios and 10 XL200P portable radios to the North Ridgeville Fire Department at no cost. This is not a lease, and Cleveland Communications has informed me that they will put in the contract that those radios are ours to keep at the end of the 2 years, even if we do not renew the contract. This is a savings of $64,000 to the city of North Ridgeville. The 5 fire departments have also applied for an Assistance to Firefighters grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency that will provide each fire department with another $250,000 in radios and related equipment if approved. The grant was applied for in cooperation with the aforementioned fire departments to operate on the shared radio system. At the time of this writing, the fire chiefs are optimistic that we will be awarded this grant based on communications that we have recently received from FEMA. In summary, all radio equipment needed for the fire departments to operate on the shared radio system should be at no cost to the city of North Ridgeville or our partnering cities. There has been some concern about interoperability of the Harris system with surrounding communities and agencies. There have also been some questions as to whether the fire department will be able to communicate with their own police department if the police department chooses to go with a different system. To answer this, it needs to be explained that all of the radios we plan to use are multi-frequency radios that can easily be programmed for UHF, VHF, and 700 and 800 megahertz frequencies. In essence, we will be able to program our radios to talk to any surrounding agencies, including the North Ridgeville Police Department. We'll also be using a CSSI interface console, which will be centrally located to connect our system to other systems so that we don't experience multiple user fees. For the first time ever in the history of the fire department, we'll be able to talk directly with all of our surrounding agencies using only one radio system. This is true interoperability. The fire department currently maintains 3 radio systems to attempt the same task, or accomplish the same task. The proposed Harris system will be interlinked with similar systems in Parma, Huron County, Medina County, Ottawa County, and others that are on the horizon. This will provide us with coverage from Toledo to Akron and from Cleveland to Mansfield. Using our system, we will be able to communicate in any area that we will ever need to operate. This includes downtown Cleveland, where we often transport patients to Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals. The interlinked systems will provide seamless coverage that does not involve changing channels or making adjustments. In conclusion, I am confident that the proposed partnership with our surrounding cities using the Harris radio system is the most reliable and affordable emergency communication solution available at this time. It was initially recommended in a much larger format by the Mission Critical study that was performed for Lorain County by an independent professional consultant in 2018. It's been recommended by the fire chiefs from Avon, Avon Lake, Sheffield Lake, and Sheffield Village, and those cities are currently passing similar legislation through their councils. We also have an interest from several other Lorain County communities that have inquired about joining the system in the near future. I am certain that the proposed system will serve us well for the next 20 years if we choose to utilize it for the fire department. I am requesting the council approve the system as soon as possible so that we can join our partnering cities in getting the system up and running in the next couple of months. As always, I thank you for your continued support. The success of the fire department is a result of all of us working together. Thank you, Chief John C. Reese.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anything further to add?
No.
Okay. Since this ordinance was introduced by Mayor Corbett, his administration, I can hear from them next before council weighs in. How do you feel about this piece of ordinance? Like it's working?
Certainly is. Well, it's a pretty complicated issue, and the communication system, as Chief Reese mentioned, has been a failure for several years now, and something that I've inherited since I started the position. I know it's been discussed for years about building our own system, owning it, and because there's a lot of money at stake, there's some entities that have turned Lorain County into a battleground, and as such, they're one of the entities which has been mentioned numerous times in here, has come to the table with quite a bit of money. It's been an interesting set of developments. There's a few things that Chief Reese mentioned that I just wanted to add a little bit more information to. While Commissioner Hung has said that, the commissioners have not voted on the issue at all yet. They said that they're going to put a tower up there, or the components on the tower, but that hasn't happened yet. The other thing is, on the second page, in the second to last paragraph, he references an interface console, which will allow us to connect to other systems so we don't experience multiple user fees. That was something that was introduced in the state budget process, but it was removed from the budget several weeks or months ago. So that's not going to happen. So there will be other fees that will have to be paid for it. If the radio is programmable to the two systems, the one that they're looking for us to join, and the state system, we'll have to pay a fee for both of those systems. It won't be one fee for the radio. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But in general, you know, there's nothing stopping the system from going forward. As a matter of fact, Cleveland Communications, who's putting this system together, has said from the very beginning that it would only take 4 of the 5 communities to agree to go forward, and they could go forward. The other 4 communities, I believe at this point, have already agreed to move forward. So the system is going forward. It's just getting on the county tower is the only thing that's holding this project from going forward up at this point. It is vital to that system's operations to be on that tower. If they don't go on the tower, then it's not going to move forward. So we're not holding anything up. Don't feel like you're under pressure to do anything. The system's going forward no matter what, as long as it can get on the county tower. The grant that we applied for, we applied for it with the other 5 communities. If we get it, we'll get that grant. We can buy the radios when that money comes in. We are still working with Cleveland Communications about those other free radios that they're looking to give us to make sure that they're free at the beginning of the contract as opposed to at the end of the 2-year contract. We're also still working with them to remove the part about the consumer price index increase as part of that contract. That was something that I brought up in the very beginning when we were looking at the 2 different systems. I said that the MARC system, that fee has not changed in years. And so we shouldn't join any system where the fee change. It should stay consistent throughout. So, and as a matter of fact, there's little to no chance that Morris is going to increase their fees because the state just gave them an extra $1 million a year budget process. So, make sure that those fees stay the same. So anyway, getting back to the systems themselves, the fire department has been pretty consistent with their belief that this Cleveland Communications system is the better system to be on. And, I'm not a radio person. I'm just listening to the different people that follow. There is a guarantee for 95% in-building coverage. There is some question as to whether the decibel levels that is mentioned at is an achievable goal or not, or whether it would still work in building. So you could get different decibels and not be able to get in the building. But if you're at the right decibel that's in the contract, you might be able to get to 95% in building. But so far, in any of the tests that have been done, we have not been able to duplicate those numbers at that decibel level. So there's some concern still on my part that a system that hasn't been built is being projected as the best thing ever. And we just don't know because we don't have the ability to test it. But I went ahead and introduced the legislation because I wanted to bring some of these things to light and allow you to discuss some of these issues. So you knew, some of what's going on. And there's a heck of a lot more that's going on that we could probably be here for a couple of hours discussing some of the nuances to all this. But, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We have the ability to join a system that the other 5 cities would be a part of. I'm sure that the firefighters know that the #1 community that we deal with in mutual aid is Avon. And then I believe the second is Westlake. Is that accurate? Okay. Westlake's on a different system. So we have a different set of radios that we use to talk to Westlake. My concern from the very beginning was, trying to get everybody on one consistent system so we could talk to everybody at the same time. No offense to Avon Lake or Sheffield Lake, but the amount of times that we deal with them on a mutual aid basis is next to 0. And that was a question that I asked the chief of Sheffield. Sheffield Village, Sheffield Lake, Avon, and North Richmond, 5 cities. Most of the time, we don't communicate with them at all. So I'm more concerned about communicating with Avon and with our own city. But We're still not sure whether this system would be smart for the police to join. They're interested in taking a wait-and-see approach to see what the system's like before they agree to move on to it. One of the challenges for them is the State Highway Patrol is on a different system. And so they're looking to try to coordinate their efforts as best they can. They don't have a sort of restricted area that they deal with as the fire department does. So, like I said, there's a lot to this. Right now, the original thought was that we would even move service over to this system. But they said that their system's fine for their purposes. So right now, we're only looking at moving the fire department over to this system. And that's it at this point. We still have the ability with the amount of money that's being saved with the equipment costs, the radio costs. The amount that we budgeted for the radio system, build the system, our share of that, we could use that money to buy radios for the police department if we needed to. But as Chief Reese notes, there's enough money or enough radio money coming to take care of their needs without us having to spend any additional money for radios. See that 55/20 fee that we have to pay for the fees for the year, and that's not really anything that we overall as part of this discussion.
Good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Safety Service Director, you can add.
I could also add a lot, but I think council should realize that 75 out of 88 counties are on the DAS mark system throughout the state of Ohio. And actually, when I was in the state senate many years ago, I was on the Marks committee, and I said, I'll never make it because I don't think that you've got enough money to put it together. So here we are almost 30 years later, 25 years later, with the Marks system that's 75 out of the 88 counties, including the Highway Patrol, the Department of Highway Department, ODOT, are all on the Marks system. So in not saying that the Harris system isn't better, I'm not suggesting that in any other way, but the state of Ohio and the budget is going towards the Marks system, and that's where it is. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Director. At this time, I'd like to open it to members of council. Any questions for the chief? Mayor?
Through the chair, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Swin.
Mayor, are you aware if the commissioners received their contract yet from them? To even look it over or vote on it, put it on the salary?
They've had multiple conversations with both the Harris people and including communications and with the Marks people and Motorola. So they've been presented with proposals from all of them to build a county system. And so depending on what direction they go in, this system might not even be available if they choose
Do you think
Motorola.
they're possibly waiting to see who passes this and who doesn't, to see if it's worth their while?
Well, again, the other 4 cities have already moved forward, and I believe that they've already passed this. At least that was the last conversation at our mayor's meeting, that they have things passed by the end of June. So there'd be no reason for the county commissioners to wait. But from what I'm told, they're on vacation until the middle of this month, so they won't be doing it until the end of July at the earliest.
Not vacation.
County commissioners.
I'd also like to add that the Marks EAS has contacted the county commissioners and said their antenna can be moved easily from Vasu over to 911 at no cost to the county. So it's there. I could see down the road where there could be a Harris antenna up there, which is a for-profit business, and going up on a 911 pole. And the department, now there is none over there. And then the state of Ohio could actually put up, Marks could put their antenna up too. So there'd be two competing radio systems up on 911. As well as probably others, because when it's opened up, when an antenna is opened up to other for-profit companies, I don't know what happens at that.
That's an interesting legal issue, you know. You don't, governments usually don't let for-profit entities, you know, put radio towers up on their devices up on their towers, but, you know, we've always been told here by our own people that we should never put anything on a water tower. The fact that they're using the Avon water tower and the Avon Lake water tower is kind of interesting, but the city council has nothing to say about the Avon Lake water tower. The Avon Lake municipal water system is run by a separate board, and they know that their attorney had put a pause on approving that contract because he had some questions about the agreement. I have not heard about it. You know, quite frankly, I don't care what system we go on. I'm just looking to improve communications that we have. And I have I've looked at some end arounds. If the fire department decides that we're going on the Harris system, and the police department decides that they're going on the Harris system, for example, I've got a solution that would allow the two of them to communicate outside of those systems without having to worry about radios or anything else. So, you know, there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. I know that there's been a lot of work by the fire chiefs of those 5 cities that has gone into this over the years. But all this, you know, has changed within the last couple of months. I mean, we appropriated the money. We were building our own system with the 5 cities, and over the last couple of months, it's changed a tremendous amount to get us to this point where we're at. But
I know it's changed a lot since appropriations last year, so. Other questions from members of council?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Evans.
I guess the question I have is I caught the fact that we could be using this system for 2 years, and if we don't like it, discontinue. Is that without any kind of penalties?
so that's been a common discussion with the mayors. You know, Harris has come to the table and offered these free radios. And the idea was, well, let's take the free radios, because if we don't like it, we could always switch to a different system and still use those radios. So that's been, you know, from the financial standpoint, that really was the game changer in this whole conversation. When they came to the table and said, we'll build the system for free, and we'll also give you free radios. The mayors of those other communities were like, there's no downside, let's just go with that, and we'll go, you know, with the system, because everything's free, we don't have this money to lay out or anything else. So, you know, the idea of, at the end of that 2-year term, if it's not working the way that it's proposed or suggested, then we could switch over to the other system and still have all this equipment.
It sounds like nobody's sure about themselves, including Marks, for at least another year. And so it's either the free system or a wait and see as to which system is going to be best for us. So
Well,
that's what I'm weighing right now.
I think once the devices are placed on the county tower, then it would be a short time thereafter that they'd be able to turn the system on. But they have to get on all those towers for the water towers and the county tower.
That's the thing that I see right now. And we only have one county commissioner saying, yeah, you can do it, and not knowing what the other two are thinking.
The idea is if we pass the legislation, then we can move a lot faster instead of waiting. That's why I introduced it.
Mr. City Secretary.
We haven't been able to use the police department. I think it's used them somewhat, the Harris radios, but the system isn't built. But the Marks radios, without any tower change whatsoever for the police department, works as to where they want. They can communicate all the way down to Cincinnati. Communicate with everyone that's on, out of the 88 counties, all 88 counties. Because the system is towers all over the state of Ohio that they've built. It's the same system that they're putting up the internet on for the southeastern Ohio. So that the state is fully committed to these towers and building them out. And back when I was on the Senate, they actually built the tower system out on the turnpike so that they could get Northeast Ohio up here, the cities up in this point. So they've got the towers up. So we're surrounded by towers of Marks. But the best we have talked about where they could actually go up on our tower. But the best place to put it is in the 911 tower. It's 350 feet tall rather than 300 foot tall. So when you get up that additional 320 feet, that's where they want to go with Marks. You have that much more coverage that it could pick up Wellington, pick up Columbia and Westlake, pick up all the rest of the towers that are around here. So Marks, and in fact, does work, and so does Harris. I mean, I have to admit, Harris does work, but Marks is in 75 out of the 88 counties.
Any other members of the council?
Mr. Chair, I just had a couple concerns. One is that Westlake's one of our top mutual aid cities. Obviously, this will be communicated, we can switch over to the Harris system. And then also the concern with the county commissioner is not actually voting on it yet. This without having them say yes, something like that. And then also I would agree with Safety Director Arbors that majority of the coverage in the states on one system, we're switching to another. That's obviously would be switched over from county to county. My concerns.
As far as the Westlake question is concerned, we would communicate them with the same equipment that we're using now. We're on Harris system. We have some Marks radios that we use to communicate with Westlake, so we just use those.
Can I add to that as well?
Sure.
The radios question that were mentioned, chief statement are multi-band, so those radios would have Westlake's communications capability. It's the way it is right now, the way it's bad, we have 3 systems. In order to talk about the HF system that we carry, the HF system that we carry, and 2 radios. 1 radio.
So 1 radio with our system will cover all 3 of those frequencies, including Westlake. Correct.
Any other members of the council?
Through the chair, what would it cost if you were to put the Mark system rather than, what would it cost the taxpayers? Difference.
We would have equipment costs that are.
So if he was given a grant for this $250,000 for radios and related equipment, if the city went with the Mark system, we would not get that grant.
That's not true. No, that grant money would still come. We would just, the radios would be programmed for Marks instead of Harris. It's not contingent on Harris. It's just money for radios.
So that it wouldn't be any additional cost of taxpayers if we went with Mark's rather than Harris.
There may be some additional costs for, well, if we needed some extra devices, there might be some extra costs for
fire trucks. There may be additional device costs that would need to be installed in those trucks.
Do we know what the cost is?
No.
The fact that you should know is that every cell phone that we have today in this room is paying for the MARC system through a tax that was put on years ago. So we are paying for the MARC system through our cell phone. Everybody that has a cell phone. So that's funding goes into the MARC system and into the budget to help out.
Any further questions?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm curious as to why the fire department is drifting away from the marks or the Harris system.
There was a safety service director in Avon and Chief Brown, where's he from? Is it Sheffield Village? Chief Young? No. They got together and they did their interviews and testing of the systems, and they felt like the Harris system was the better choice to choose. So I don't know all the details of what they did to arrive at that conclusion, but that's what they determined. So you had one guy from Avon, one guy from Sheffield Village, and they made the decision essentially. I think the idea that there's 95% in-building coverage guaranteed in the contract goes a long way to making fire departments feel like that's the better choice.
Ticket marks cannot or will not make that guarantee.
Without moving the antenna over, which they are capable of doing probably tomorrow, there's no way of knowing. But we do know that most of the coverage in the buildings that we have been in with the police department have fully tested out the MARCS radios in and out work. So they will not guarantee the 95% until they've figured out. And I don't know if that's even possible, but the guarantee in the contracts, from Harris. I mean, they say it's going to be, so
Harris doesn't make it, the lawyers have to feel it.
Well, and that was a conversation that I had with Corey Stearns, who is one from the police department who did a lot of the testing. Sorry, Corey Sable. And then he was the one who was talking about the decibel levels and the map that was provided by Cleveland Communications, and the the map at that decibel level shows that there'd be 95% in-building coverage. But he said, based on the tests that he was doing with radios, he couldn't get that same coverage at that decibel level inside buildings. And so, look, I don't know. At one point, we had some discussions internally, and the fire department was involved in those discussions about waiting to see what the system's like once it was up and operational before committing to anything. But you guys are just being asked to give me the power to enter into a contract. You're not giving go ahead to actually do it. That's something that would still, I have to still sign the contract and still agree to put us in that position. So, the idea of the ordinance is to just give me the power, because I can't do it without your authorization. But give me the power so that way I could do it in a immediate fashion, as opposed to waiting for testing to be done and for, things to be sorted out before moving forward. It would just be short circuits the process.
it's a tricky situation. We still like more information, obviously, things I kind of live on to the fact that it's communication system, as the chief had said, needs to be replaced. It should have been replaced a couple of years ago. I like the fact that we are getting grant money to support us, the fact that we get the equipment, and if it's not, we find out it's, we can actually switch over. So,
We haven't gotten the grant yet.
okay, but if we get the grant, it can be used for your system, as you stated earlier, which I think is important. So, unless there's any further comments or questions? Gentlemen, please step to the podium, state your
You know
name.
what, Mr. President, we have a council meeting that starts at 7. You are gonna have to adjourn this meeting and continue it to some other point in time. Because we have to start the council meeting on time.
All right,
If I may, we got
you may not, sorry, sir. At this time, we'll have to carry this over to a future meeting, to these proceedings. With that said, this meeting's adjourned.